Welcome to this week's edition of End of Life Conversations Current Events. I am the editor and other, Sam Lee Zemke.
I love it. The other, yeah. And I'm Reverend Wakil David Matthews, and we're really glad to have everybody back. We're going to talk about some current things going on and think about how they relate to our ongoing struggles with life, with grief and loss and death and dying.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I am the Reverend Mother Ana Luisa Armendariz, and I invite you to pull up a chair with us and talk about what is going on currently and how that affects us in our grief cycles and our noticing of things that die around us. So I hope you enjoy our conversation.
Yeah. So we
Yeah,
thought we would start today. Go ahead, Sam. Did you want to do that?
sure.
Yes.
I was
Go-
volunteered for it, so
That's right. Go,
I
Sam,
guess I'll go for it. We went through some of the things that are currently going on, and what jumped out for me was the recent walk for peace that the Buddhist monks from Texas,
Fort Worth. Yep.
Fort Worth, Texas,
Mhm.
recently finished, and how that relates to our world of grief and death, and that in a both physical and non-physical sense.
Yeah, they definitely had their suffering going on. They had one of the people was injured, I guess, in a car accident on the
Yep.
way up, and
He got hit by a car.
they were walking through some really cold places and probably had some people not so happy to see them too.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I think it also speaks to this kind of feeling in all of us of this kind of lack of loss of control, and that the grief that comes around the loss of control, not being able to make peace in the world as many, many years as we've tried, as many ways we've tried, and to see these people working so hard and doing so much to just really put themselves out there was inspiring, and at the same time, for me anyway, a little bit sad just to think that that we still have to do this stuff, right? And we haven't made really
Mhm.
any progress in all of human time, really, to
Mhm.
speak of, and actually creating peace.
Yeah, and it's um I I noticed it coming up through my newspapers that I read, and I remember that there have been times when there have been many walks for peace in the past. Like
Yeah.
we've been doing, yeah, like you said, we've been doing it for a long time in our recent history. And people generally assume like it's a Buddhist thing. It's their religious practice that calls them to do this. And I would say, they are bringing forth the awareness that something is terribly wrong and that they want to bring awareness to this. And, does it work? Is it uncomfortable for people to see others taking that mantle of awareness almost? I was just struck by this. Struck is my word right now because that one monk that did get hit, he was literally hit by a car. A car went after him,
Hmm.
hit him, and, he lost his leg. And, they ended up trying to get a prosthetic for him, and he joined them in Washington, DC, and I think about the loss that he encountered
Well, yeah.
and still continued to show up for us.
Hmm.
Right? Like,
Hmm.
very much like the grief that we are all holding, the sadness that peace isn't available to us, I will continue in spite of everything that's happened. So, uh, I'm in awe of people who can do these
Yeah.
things,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And that piece of the story is particularly interesting. I remember a detail where that particular monk was given the option of a long recovery process because of the damage that was done to his leg, to be in rehab, to be in, the long, potentially years-long recovery process
Convalescent, yep.
of that, and
Yeah.
he made the choice to
Mhm.
amputate,
Mm.
to have
Yeah.
that physical loss so that he could return to this pilgrimage.
Mm,
Chose that level of suffering and lifelong, different
mhm.
kind of suffering because of how important it was to show up and, uh, give vision and presence to the awareness of suffering and grief and lack of peace that
Yeah,
is going on that
yeah,
inspired that walk.
yeah. Yeah, that's really
Mm.
inspiring, you're right, and, again, it's to take on and to think about his response and the ongoing response and everybody else around him, their response to seeing this accident happen or was it on purpose, I don't know what the story was, but to see that person be so badly harmed, that had to have been an effect on the entire group. And they all must have been feeling that
Mhm,
fear
mhm,
and that, are we gonna be attacked as we go here? And is this worth it? I mean, it became and to some extent,
mm,
I think part of my grief around it was sort of became performative after a while because they were I don't think they intended for that to be the case. They did this, I really do believe from having read their stories, they really did this out of a sense of caring and, wanting to do something, wanting to make uh, an effort to bring peace to the world in whatever way they could and in a way that they had been taught was a good way to do it. Um, and yet, because of the way our world is, social media gathered it all up, and it suddenly became this kind of big performance. And I wonder how they felt about that. I wonder if there was a sense of loss of control. Like
mhm,
this wasn't really meant to be a big hoopla, and now
mhm,
suddenly we're rock stars.
mhm.
you know,
Well, having known Buddhists and practiced Buddhism for a while, I don't know that that actually probably entered into their brain sphere much.
Mhm.
Like, it is what it is,
Yeah, that's true.
and it's what drew their heart drew them to this act, and they know they have no control, they're not attached to any outcome, and so the outcome of becoming, celebrities overnight probably doesn't phase any of them. I wanna tie this back to death and dying, though,
Yeah,
and, I've done the Camino de Santiago, and I met people who were doing that pilgrimage because of a loss of in their lives,
yeah,
all kinds of losses, and you and I have talked about, you can mourn the loss of a job, a friendship, a tree, a house, a loved one, right? So, I did meet a lot of folks who were also on their pilgrimage, and I think about when somebody encounters a death close to their heart, oftentimes, I believe people want to do something like this,
mm,
and they don't want it to be performative, but it sometimes becomes performative. The
yeah.
wailing, the gnashing of teeth. We've had, like, a history of people, like, shaving their eyebrows off, uh, wearing all black, and, you know, I think they might have been told that they were doing performative actions as well, and yet it's a balm for the soul when you can do nothing but that,
That's right.
you
Really
know?
true. Yeah, really good point. Yeah, and it actually gives us something to, recommend to our listeners, as part of the ceremony, part of the ritual that you can consider, if you're going through loss of any kind, that walking meditation is a really good one, and this, watching what they did and why they did it and how they did it,
Mhm.
could be a good example of a way to, um, work through some of these things. So, yeah, so they gave us a good example. I think it's worth noticing what they brought, and that it is in the Buddhist world about life is suffering,
You
and this
choose what you're gonna suffer for, right?
right, yeah,
It's a
yeah,
choice.
yeah,
Yeah, and to speak sort of to what the monks' reflections were about gaining so much attention and so much support, there have been some interviews, and I remember one of them right after they'd arrived in DC, and the monk talked about how it was both very heartening to see the amount of support and the amount of people that came out,
yeah,
and also it made him really, really sad
mhm,
because there were so many people who, like you're saying, didn't know what else to do, are
Mhm.
yeah,
grieving what's going on in the world,
Mhm.
are and feel powerless to do anything, and so they see this action and some place to pour energy and support and a way to engage and put energy behind something that they believe in, which is peace.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so it gained that momentum in that way, but to recognize the scale of the sorrow and the suffering that is going
Mhm.
on that would
Mhm.
call people out to that
Oh, yeah.
to that
Mhm.
level. And the other thing relating to death that I would say about it is on a long pilgrimage, you're close to death. If it's you and the elements, they're walking across the country in the middle of
Mhm.
winter,
Yeah.
and there were reports of, you know, malnutrition. I think it was one of the lead monk had to take breaks or had to stop his walking because his body was physically dying because
Yeah.
he was
Mhm.
walking so much
Yeah.
and you're cold and so to to be on the edge of life and death when
Mm.
on pilgrimage, I think about, the people who accept that risk making pilgrimages to holy sites all
Yeah.
over the
Mhm.
all the time. You know,
Mhm.
the the amount of dead bodies on Everest or, the
Right.
reports of the pilgrimage to Mecca and how that is the last thing that a lot of people do and
Mhm.
can be an intentional choice in that way
Mhm.
too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm at the end, I'm gonna start walking this direction, and I'll
Mhm.
get as far as I get before my time comes.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really great thought too. Yeah, that acceptance that, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna accept the fact that and it's something we try to be in state of acceptance of life and loss and death. But to be in that acceptance I mean, in many indigenous cultures, when they know they're dying, they just walk away, right? And they walk out into the woods or into the desert or wherever. So it really is an amazing kind of um, over overview of what we watched and how that relates to
Mhm.
our daily our acceptance of death and dying.
Mhm.
Interesting way to kind of come around to that. Thank you.
Yes. So I think it's just also a reminder for those of you who don't believe that death intersects with your personal life on a daily basis. It is actually very present moment to moment, and it just is a moment of changing, like, how you used to do, like, the hot dog thing? It's like stare behind you and you could see the floating hot dog? I feel like if you soften your gaze, you see death so close, and you can become so comfortable when you start noticing it, and I hope that if anyone out there listens to this and, you know, becomes curious about what does death look like, this will be the first step into that awareness.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, it's something saying that, it's true that you and I and Sam probably too, and being having been so exposed to this for a while, um, when you do have that, when you see the hot dog all the time,
The floaty hot dog.
right? Um, when you do have that perspective,
Mhm.
it's like it's true. We were talking at the beginning, what current event is most up front of mind and how does that relate to death and dying? And there's nothing that doesn't. We can always find a way, right? It
That's
always
right.
does because and probably more because of who we are and and our perspective in the world. But
Mhm.
to nurture that in ourselves
Mhm.
and to
Mhm.
encourage others to nurture that and to let people know that we're available, that Annalisa and I are both available as companions to talk about this as well is something that we want to make sure we start
Mhm.
noticing more and offering more. And soon Sam will be in that space too. So, um, so we're all, that's our work. That's our ministry. That's what we want to do is make sure people understand that we are, we are living in this wonderful, beautiful life and death is part of it. And
That's
it's
right.
always part of it.
It's a continuum.
And that's just another part of the beauty, another part of the experience. So thank you so much for joining us today. I hope this was interesting and useful. We'd love to hear from you. We'd like to hear your ideas or if there's anything you wish we would talk about. And we'd love to help in any way we can. So feel free to reach out.
That's right.
So,
And if you haven't been exposed to the Buddhist monks Walk for Peace, it's Walk for Peace, US, and they're all over social media. Um, Highly recommend looking into those, not just for the performance and spectacle, but I've also seen many reports that the practices that they have offered and are archived have been a great balm for people to center
mhm,
and
mhm.
find quiet and space and peace within themselves during this time of immense uh, conflict and
Yeah,
tension.
yeah. There are some really good articles from people who have just been so inspired by it in different ways and have felt that sense of relief and, like you said, and Ana Luisa or somebody said, just that, this is something I can do. I can go stand there and watch them go by and honor them with food and love and whatever, and just sharing that community sense that we're all in this together. It's so important. It's an important thing we can one of the things we can do in this maelstrom
Hold
That's
the
to
right.
grief and
yeah.
suffering and sorrow together.
Yep, exactly. It's the only way we're
Well,
gonna make it through.
that's exactly right. So soften your gaze and take a deep breath. Something
And
to
see the
offer.
floating hot dog of death around you.
I'm there with you, baby.
Alright,
Until next time,
alright.
Adios.
Much love.
adios.
Adios.
Grief and loss, conversations about the end of life.